on this computer. Welcome everyone to Soul Quest episode 42 with Chris Carlson. We're so excited to have Chris with us today. Yay.
Thank
you.
Glad to be with you guys.
We appreciate you taking time to do this because we heard your stories at the Be the Change retreat in Costa Rica. We heard some of your stories and they're just fascinating. And I knew that you would be a good person to interview. So here we are.
Yeah,
what a fun.
So Chris, just tell us really quick what's going on with you and where you're at. It looks kind of jungle-ish, you know. Are you still in Costa Rica?
Yeah, feels like it, right? Yeah, no, I'm here in Florida. It's almost been about a year now since I moved here. It was during like halfway through the pandemic, maybe towards the beginning of the pandemic, I guess. We just decided that we didn't want to deal with everything, and it was a good opportunity for us to leave. And we had I have a company out there, electrical contracting business that I have out there, and everything, just the way everything went, it was this was our next move. And I'm actually, you know, I'm a Colorado native. You know, I'm born and raised there, and my whole family's been there. So it was really hard for me to make that move. But man, coming here is just this was the right move.
I bet it's amazing. Like Florida, I always say F is for Florida, F is for freedom. That's what I keep saying to myself. People move to Florida for freedom, or Texas.
Seriously, it's true.
Really?
So, that's awesome.
So yeah, I'm here in Florida now and just working away on this land, you know, getting established, trying to get some gardens growing and some, you know, some fruit trees, and just so I can supply my own stuff. Maybe get some chicken.
So awesome. I am so excited for you guys, and I can't wait till we come visit you. We're gonna stay in that little house. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, finish that house, guys. So we can go over there and stay for a couple days, a weekend maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. So you grew up in what part of Colorado did you grow up?
So I was in like Evergreen, Colorado. So more like the foothills, mountainish area.
Yeah, that's right. I told you my friend Heather moved there from Texas a year ago. So I visited Evergreen last summer. It's gorgeous.
You saw the lake, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of things did you like? What kind of lessons did you have as a child growing up there with your family?
Yeah, so kind of had an interesting childhood, and it's weird. So I'm actually in these classes right now. It's called Remember.
That's right. You mentioned that.
Yeah, and so it's funny that you just brought this up because 2 weeks ago, we had like a guest speaker talking to everyone, and he was, you know, we were going back, you know, sitting there with ourselves and what's called like the heart compass, and you just going back to like your childhood and basically just picking up any memories that you can from your early childhood. The earlier the better, like the earliest ones, and then, you know, maybe the memorable ones. And I was actually having a really hard time because I had an amazing childhood. I couldn't remember a trauma. I couldn't remember like a bad instant. I couldn't remember like my parents ever yelling at me, like being thrown in a room. Like, so like everyone, it was really easy for everyone to, you know, hurry up and come up with their, you know, because it could have been just the littlest thing, like, you know, because these things can happen from love too, you know. It could just be, you know, the parent just couldn't listen to you in that moment, and, you know, and that's what you really needed. And I couldn't even come up with that, you know. I'm not saying that they didn't happen. I just couldn't come up with anything. And so as I was sitting there, so this whole class goes by, and then probably about 2 days later, it hits me. So I used to have these experiences when I was a kid where I would be like visited by what I know now is is from my higher self and like angels and stuff. But I would have these experiences, and I would always know when they were going to come, because I would feel this experience in my body. In particular, I would feel real weird on my thumbs. Like my thumbs would just start like expanding and feeling really weird. And then I would be laying in my room, and then all of a sudden the room would just expand out. And so I would have this feeling though in my body before it would happen. And it was a regular thing. So like probably like once or two times a month, this would happen to me. And sometimes I would freak out and scream and run to my parents' room, or sometimes I would just get so like frozen and scared that I would just sit there and experience what would happen. And like a few things that would happen is like I used to have like these Indians, these like little tiny Indians that used to come into my room and just sit there and chant, and like on my bookshelves, and there'd probably be like 50 Indians in there like trying to communicate and talk to me and like shooting arrows at each other and weird things. And
wow.
that night I had my higher self come into my room and explain to me a past life about how I was an Indian, and I don't know if it was my past life or if it was just a past life. But that I was an Indian, and that I had this black wolf that I used to either be around me or follow me all the time. And we both got killed in this like battle or this war we were in with another tribe. And it showed me where I got like stabbed by these arrowheads. It was a spear of some sort. And my birthmarks on my body today are from where I got stabbed.
Oh, amazing.
What?
Yeah, and you can.
So cool. I'm so intrigued by past life.
On here, but like they look like arrowheads on my. They look like arrowheads, wow. Like darker arrowheads on my body. Over time, they've definitely gotten a lot lighter. But I remember being a kid and always telling everyone like, "Yeah, I got stabbed here and stabbed here," and I would tell people that. And it just
wow.
So I always thought that everyone knew that, and everyone had known their past lives, and everyone, and then so like going back to my childhood, that's like what I came up with that like caused me trauma. So it's pretty crazy that like my own higher self was the one to initiate my trauma when I was little.
Oh.
So this past like couple weeks I've been really sitting with that, and like it makes sense. Like I didn't, I think we all do come here and choose our lives, and we choose our parents before we come, and it's just, it's interesting that that it'll happen one way or another. If it's if not going to happen through your parents, maybe I guess it's going to happen through your higher self.
Interesting. It's like you chose to come into this life with a really easy, loving childhood, so you could have these like deep spiritual experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely because the way, I had such a good childhood, it really, it helped me through, my life. Like I've always had a huge heart. My heart has always been huge, and I've always been just trying to look out for other people and give love to other people. And I guess I just kind of saw the world from a different place than most kids. I didn't really understand why, but probably because of what, we experienced through our childhood. And my mom, she's been like me since she was a little kid. So, she knew a lot what was going on with me. She didn't, but she did. She didn't actually get into, real spiritual work until the 90s when she became a Reiki's master. And then that's when like our whole lives so this was probably when I was my mom got into that when I was probably about like 14. So I was about 14 years old, and that's when everything like stopped for me. It was actually probably before that. I was probably about 12 years old, and all that stopped. So from when I was as little as I can remember until I was 12, I used to have these experiences all the time. And then when I was about, like 12 or 14, all of it went away. But then my mom, she became a Reiki master, and she implemented all these other things into our life. Like that was about the time when, you know, she went just full organic and changed the way we ate, and our laundry detergent, our toothpaste, everything changed. So yeah, I had a little bit of a little different childhood, and it's with these classes right now that I'm in are just really connecting things for me. So
Wow.
I'm able to really connect things right now, and it's amazing.
Yeah, like it's all making sense now,
Yeah.
right? Like from the past to where you're at now, like
Mm-hmm.
everything it's just adding up, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it
like I
makes
really never understood until like what happened to me as a kid until literally like 2 weeks ago. Like I knew what these things were, but I never thought about them. Like I knew I had these experiences as a kid. I've never talked to anyone about them, you know, except maybe my mom when I was young. But ever since then, that's just been a door that got closed.
Mm.
And with this class, it just hit me. I was like, oh, I can't believe that, you know, that was such a huge part of my childhood. I can't believe I was like, I couldn't remember that, you know, and now it's just like, it's all coming back to me, like memories and things that I had in my room as a child that I'd never be able to remember are like coming back to me real slow and real weird. And
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So then what happened after high school? Where did you go?
Yeah. So I stayed up in, no, actually I left Evergreen and I went down to the city after that. And then I became like just this wild kid. I got real wild. I got into, you know, I got into a lot of drinking with my friends and partying, and I was a mess. I mean, I wouldn't say mess. It was probably one of the, you know, some of my most memorable experiences, you know, just with my friends. But it went like this. It went like that for probably till I was about 30. So from my 20 to 30, all I did was basically just party. I just partied, and I had
Sounds like
no
Cisco.
idea what was going with my life. I had no goals. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I didn't even like to work. Like I loved to work, but I didn't like, I never saw the whole 9 to 5 thing. I never understood it, and it was just never me. So, and I worked with my dad. So my dad was, he was an electrical contractor. So basically, you know, that was my role, and that's all I ever knew, because since I was 14 years old, like he was, after high school, I'd go to work. And I did that, and I worked along next to him for about 12 years. And then he ended up getting cancer. My dad got cancer and ended up passing away from it. And that was in 2012. So he ended up dying from colon cancer in 2012. And this is when everything came back for me. So once he passed away, I actually got into I got into a really addictive personality. So I started doing, he was taking painkillers to take away his pain. And one day when he was, we were working in this basement one time, and I had this really bad migraine. He ended up giving me one of his painkillers, and I got the taste of it. That's the first time I ever tasted a painkiller. And I was suffering at that time. I was in really bad depression. I had anxiety, PTSD, the whole works that they give you, you know, when you go to the doctor. And so I ended up taking one, and then for about a year after that, I was stealing his medication, his pills. So I would take like one a day. Sometimes I would take 2 days. And then it got into where I was basically taking it every day. And I was just basically leaving my body. Like I just couldn't be in this body anymore. Like it was just painful to be who I was. And I knew there was only 2 ways out. I was just going to drown myself with this medication, or I was going to end up killing myself. And at this time was about the time where I had thoughts of it. And then my dad fought cancer for 4 years. And then, so he passed away from it, and that was 2012. And then it got really bad for me. So then I started, like, there wasn't a day that I didn't miss some sort of, medication, whether it be a painkiller or something for anxiety or something, whatever it was, I was always having to be on some sort of medication. And I was doing these things and completely like, I took over my dad's business. So I was like on these painkillers like 24/7. I was never off of a painkiller unless I was sleeping. And I was running a business like this. I was getting up at 4 o'clock, doing everything like I was supposed to. Like no one in my entire life knew that I did this for 10 years. No one knew. Yeah. And then, and then everything just started to come crashing down. I ended up starting my own business. I dropped his business, started my own business. And then, it just got so bad and I couldn't run from it anymore. And the painkillers and all the medication I was trying to take wasn't doing anything for me anymore. It was like I was taking so much of it that I was just getting sick, and it was just making me sick. And I still take it, like, because even being sick was better than me being in that place. So I was just sick every day. I would make myself sick. I would wake up, pay all this money to make myself sick and go on with life. And then, it just came, and then it was probably about a year before COVID came. Was it? No, it was probably 2 years before COVID came, is when I went to go basically just end my life. Like I went to this river. I wrote a note to my family, went to this river. And this, like, I've never even been in my life. I've never been to this river. No one that I know has ever been there. So I just kind of randomly went into the woods, not real random, because we did have a job that was on the other side of this mountain. I've never taken this other road to get to this other side, but we did have a house up there. So my wife hit one of the guys up and said, "You need to go find Chris now. Like, just leave, just go." Like, she didn't know what to do, so she just told him to leave. And his name is Colton. So he ended up he just left the job and started driving down, didn't know where he was going. And he said that a voice like was coming into his head, and he's not a spiritual person. Like he's like doesn't believe in anything. He's the kind of guy that doesn't believe in anything. So he wasn't really, connecting with it, but he was basically going to where it was telling him, and he found my truck, like kind of hidden. And then not only that, but I was in like probably like 3/4 of a mile into the woods, not on a trail, just real random. And then I was at the spot on this lake. He literally came through out of the woods when the exact same pathway that I walked. And I was right there, probably minutes away from doing this. And he's like, "Chris." And I thought I was hearing like voices in my head. So I never looked up, and I was kind of talking to it in my head, like, "Wait, what? That sounds like Colton. That really sounds like Colton." He's like, "Dude, Chris." And he's like shaking because he realizes what was about to take place, And so he starts crying, and I crying, and like I had this awakening experience. Was probably my first awakening I've had probably 5 or 6 of them now, and this was my first one. So I had basically this feeling where everything just flipped upside down. Like everything right in that moment, literally just like flipped upside down. Like the reds were blues and like nothing made sense. Nothing made sense. And I had no idea what was going on. And I wasn't sure if that I already killed myself or what was taking place. And this was like my angel and it was Colton. So I'm like looking down, like, no, I didn't do anything yet. I didn't. And I'm having to talk to Colton to try to like come back into my body and realize that like, no, he literally just came out of nowhere and saved me. And then I started my journey. So what I ended up doing was I went to Peru to do some ayahuasca in the jungle. And I didn't know anything about ayahuasca. I've never done an hallucinogenic wise. I've never done a hallucinogenic in my life. So I was skeptic, but I was that person that was like, I'll try anything. I'll do anything. I'll try anything. I don't care what it is. Like, I'll do whatever it is. So it was actually my wife who was the one that found out about it and then showed me. And then I basically really didn't know anything about it. I just went. So I ended up just going to Peru to join in some ayahuasca. And I guess my intentions at the time were all I cared about at this time was my dad and death. And like, so I was still in this traumatic like experience of my dad and trying to hold that up, because that was like the real big turning point in my life. That was like the hardest thing that I've ever had to experience. And so it was always on my mind, and it was still keeping me from falling back into, habits like that, like going into like smoking weed. Like I couldn't get away from that. And it was just like, I was still trying to escape. And at this time I was off of the prescription and the painkillers by now. So, so yeah, I was in Peru. So my intentions out there was just to talk to my dad. I was like, all I care about is my dad. I just want to talk to my dad. I want to see my dad. I didn't get to say goodbye. I want to know some answers, blah, blah, blah.
How long was this? How long after your dad died did you go to Peru?
Let me see, 5 years.
Okay, wow. So you're still grieving.
Yeah. 5 years. And like,
Wow.
it was just getting worse for me. Like I saw my family, like at the time when he passed, like I was the strongest one. I was like, I was hardly crying and I was trying to hold my family together. And then I was trying to hold everyone together for so long that they all healed and I never got to heal. And then I just went down and crashed and realized that like everyone healed from this situation, but I didn't heal. Like I'm getting worse by the day. Like, so yeah, about 5 years passed, and then I went to Peru and I was in for either 4 or 5 sessions. And I went there and I had amazing experiences. I never got to talk to my dad. I never saw my dad. What happened was that it put me in my dad's shoes. So I was just like a third person. Like I was my dad, and then I was just out here watching. So I was just watching all of his events, and I was going through all these events, like some events that like would happen that I remember being in, but I never got to see like some of it. Like for instance, like he had this situation where there was this dog that I think I might have told you guys about this, but there was this dog that kept getting into our trash. And we're leaving work one day and he sees the dog trying to get into our trash. And so he plows the trash over and he's chasing the dog, trying to run the dog over. And I'm sitting there yelling at him like, please stop, don't do it. And so we're chasing the dog all the way to his house. And then my dad gets out of the van and goes to the guy's house and is like banging on the guy's house. That's the part I couldn't see.
Okay.
But during the ayahuasca experience, I saw all of it. I saw, like, I was in the guy's house. I was there. listening to the whole thing. I knew exactly what my dad said. So it took me through all these experiences, and towards the end, I remember just sitting back and like, okay, like that was cool. Wait, what? And it was like, that is why your dad died. That's why he died. He died because of all of those experiences. And I realized like, oh, he died because of the anger he was experiencing, and he wasn't doing anything with anger, and the anger was sitting in his body, and then that caused cancer. And then it told me also at the same time is, you will not get cancer. You can't have cancer, doesn't come from your dad. So I also learned in that moment that your genes do not tell you which way you're going to go in life. Because I always had this like, oh, you know, I'm going to have cancer in my life now. So now I have to get colon checked every year. And so that was always, and then it was like, that's why you get it, is because you're always thinking about it, and it's always there. And you're creating your own cancer by that way. So like, just know that, you know, we are the creators of our reality. And that enlightenment really hit me, because like, wow. I came back with that, like trying to tell people like, no, our genes don't do this, you know? And it was like my thing. And like people were just thought I was crazy, you know, but you know,
that's amazing. I mean,
so, yeah,
to get a message like that. Wow.
Yeah. It was a pretty crazy experience. And we did San Pedro out there. I had some really cool San Pedro experiences, where I just left my body.
Actually, wait, I don't know what that is.
It's a cactus.
Okay.
Juice or powder. They make it into a juice or powder from a cactus, and then you boil it and blend it, and it's just like a euphoric feeling. You don't. I think some people hallucinate maybe a little bit. It's like really, really mild mushrooms. But I never experienced any hallucination on it. I was just like happy for 8 hours. Like I just felt really good. And then I remember like laying on this bed that they had there, and I like left my body at one point, and I was just going and I was listening to all their conversations. So I was like, what it felt like is that I just like turned into all of them almost, because I never really had like a point of view, like a third person, like I had when I was doing that ayahuasca with my dad. It was like I was all the people at that time. So like I woke up and I was like, yeah, John, you had this conversation with Sarah, and you guys talked about this, and then you guys talked about this, and they were all like, what the like, how did you know that? Like everyone thought I was sleeping on the couch, but I was just experiencing this really cool experience.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
And so this was, what year was this? So it's 5 years after your dad passed. How many years ago?
That I was in Peru?
Yeah.
This is 5 years from when my dad passed. I was in Peru.
Okay, so like
Pedro
2017.
2000. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And so I hear about people that do ayahuasca, like how they come back and it's like their lessons that they've learned and insights that they get, they're like there for like 2 or 3 months. It's like in them, but then it's like slowly they forget it. So how did that happen to you? Obviously not, because you're telling us this.
No, so I remember when I came back, I was a little upset because I thought it was going to be something way more. And I thought I was going to be like a completely different person when I came back. I had way too many expectations. And I learned you don't go with no expectations. You just go with what it is. So when I came back, yes, I had all these expectations, and I'm thinking the world is going to change and I'm going to be this enlightened being and all this. I realized like nothing was changing and nothing happened. And then I started experiencing like these, like this, it was like acne almost, but it was like coming through my skull. And I've never had like acne before. I've never had like this before. So I it just kept coming out to my head. So like I was like I got really weirded out. I used to get like I used to go to the barber all the time, and I stopped going to the barber because I was like, this is like embarrassing. Like I'm like losing my hair. And then so one night I'm having this dream, and I had this dream that I was sitting there like this, and my scalp got taken off like this, and then there was there was an alien spaceship like floating above my head, like right here, and it was like that big, maybe a little bit bigger, and then it opened up, and you could see like my brain, you could see everything going on, like it's moving and the fluid, and then all these little aliens come down and they start working on my brain. Like I could see them and feel them like moving like basically changing the patterns in my brain, like changing my brain patterns. And I got in that moment like that these pusses are coming out of my head because this is toxins. It's basically it was pulling toxins and shit that I had stored up in my body. And it also taught me something really cool about being present and being conscious. So it was telling me that anytime you go and you touch your head, you're going to make this worse, and we're going to make it worse for you. So every time you go do that, we're going to make it spread. Well, it was such a habit. I was like really like fighting myself to not touch my head. And so it was saying like, every time I do that, become conscious, be aware, and be present in that moment. Know that it's basically us just trying to bring you present. We want you to be present. So we're going to keep doing this until you can catch yourself and be present as much as possible. So I got to the point where I was like, oh, I forgot I'm not being present. Because every time I would do this, I wasn't conscious. So I would become conscious. So then I would just stay conscious, and I would stay conscious longer and longer and longer because I wasn't touching my head. So it was like helping me stay conscious, which I found to be probably one of the hardest things on this journey, to just stay conscious as long as possible. Like it's a really tedious task to try to just sit conscious, but it showed me so much. Like when I almost killed myself, I actually had my first daughter, she was 6 months old. So it just goes to show you, like, even that wasn't going to stop me. But so when I came back, so my daughter's about 8 months old at this point, and it finally hit me. I finally realized what love was. Like, love finally hit me for the first time in my life. Like, and I saw it in my daughter, and it was because I was conscious. It was only because I was being conscious that it really hit me. And ever since then, I've literally spent every day with my kids. Like, I've never, unless we went to Costa Rica for a week, that's the most I've ever left my kids, and now she's going to preschool, but we've never had a babysitter for them. A grandparent has never watched them. A brother or sister has never watched our kids. No one has ever watched our kids but us. So like, we've never been on a date. We've never been out like that. Never.
Wow.
That mainly was because of the whole COVID thing, and it kind of just changed our lives, and and we were coming here. So it wasn't like we didn't want to or we couldn't. It just, the way our lives were going, and it like pulled me away from my work. And I was literally just with my daughter every day. At the time, it was just my first daughter. And she showed me how to become a kid again. Like I felt what it was like to be a kid again. And I felt that euphoric feeling to like be excited for silly little things I would find myself being excited about. So I would just spend every day like, all right, I'm not going to go teach my daughter. I'm just going to have her teach me. So we would go out in the yard, and I would just, do her thing. I would just be in the moment and let her control the whole situation. And that really changed me. That really showed me
the bond.
The bond.
the bond of love.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, so that whole where I was, releasing stuff in my head, that took place a year after my ayahuasca. Like, so, yeah. And so it was about a year long. And I remember sitting down, I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Like, I'm good on this lesson. I'm like, can we, give me my hair back? Can I have my head back? Like, and just like that, I never had it again. Never had anything come from my head again like that. So yeah, it was this lesson that it showed me. So yeah, that ayahuasca stayed in my system for a year after I did it. And like, I know that it did. I know it was in my system for a good year I left.
You feel like, I'm thinking like maybe that extraterrestrial event happened, right? And the ayahuasca kind of opened you up to be able to know that it happened, or to hear from them, like, you're not supposed to touch your head, like this is what's happening, and you're able to see it.
Yeah.
Cisco always talks about like, when are the aliens going to come see me? Because we're always hearing people talk about these experiences like this. He's like, when are they going to come see me?
Another thing that I think is it brings like an enlightenment, but like when you look at teenagers, and teenagers go through adolescence, and of course it's hormones and stresses, but now what you said right now just makes me think like teenagers are just trying to release all these toxins and feelings of their body.
Oh, that is a great
point. I'm saying? That it is happening within their brain, that they're, whether they're star seeds or, just growing into the individual that they're about to become as a grown-up, that they release it through their face. And it comes out in that perspective as well. So like, when you were telling me this, I was like, that's why kids go through adolescence, have tons of pimples, because they have so much pressure on themselves, and whether they're shy or they don't know how to deal with society because they're coming into a young adult, that they have these stresses and they release it through their face, and then not to touch their face.
Wow.
That's that's interesting. Yeah, for sure.
That's a great connection. Yeah, that sounds true. So I'm curious, have you had any other like extraterrestrial like events like that?
Yeah.
Or outer body experience that where you felt, and Chris, actually, when we were in, at Emiloa, you expressed several things, to all of us that I thought that were, they're very intuitive within your own self, what I'm saying? And in order to express it to someone else who's been confused with them own self, like Sonia, she had a connection with you that you related to her, that you expressed with yourself, that she didn't even know about it, but she wanted to overcome that expression.
Right.
So she attached, she attached to you and wanted to know more. What I'm saying? Like what you had went through, that she, for all her years of living, that she hadn't had someone to like open her up to express herself in the way that she was ready to release what she wanted to release, like going to the jungle in the middle of the night, what I'm saying? Or, something like that. So like, I honestly believe like we as human beings, Chris, you, myself, Sharon, like we're here to teach, not only or learn from our own experience, but we have to share these experiences to let other people know. And that's why we do this podcast, because like we want to let people share their experience on the podcast. But then like, whether it was someone who hears this podcast, it'd be like, oh dude, yes, I relate so much. And then that this is why, and I never came to a conclusion why, because until someone comes out and expresses it.
And that's true too, because like I was never this person to talk about myself like this, never,
dude. And you said that, I remember you talked like you weren't that kind of person, you said like, that.
And it's like, it's not even like I woke up one day and was like, all right, I'm just gonna start telling my story to everyone and just start speaking. It's almost like that's gonna happen whether you like it or not. It's almost like it's like this part of evolving that has to come along with it. And I think the reason why it does is because it actually helps you integrate things that you may have not caught. Because even though I'm just talking about it to someone who relates to it in a sense, and they relate to it, and they bring up something that I never thought about, it would hit me in that moment, because that person's being a reflection of me, that I needed something in that way. So when I started talking to people and telling people, because it started for me just shortly before we went to Costa Rica. I just started doing that with people, and what I realized is it opens me up, and I find out other things about myself, and then I start really learning about that person, because then that person, when I come to someone and tell someone that I tried to kill myself, and I was addicted to pain medicine and these things, then they're like, oh, well, I can tell my story then, because there's nothing really to hide here. And then you just open yourselves up to these crazy conversations and
things. The correlation, the correlation between the two energies of individuals that bring out, the voice.
Right. More
it's
learning.
Funny, dude. I've been paying attention to the clouds behind you, dude. And right now it just seems like there's this golden illumination around your head with the clouds, but it wasn't like that before.
You're right.
But now there is. It's like a golden illumination around your head.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Wow. These have been great stories. We don't want to keep you longer, but I would really like for our listeners to kind of hear your journey real quick in business, how you started your own business and how that works for you, and where that's brought you today.
You started a new chapter. You said you started a new chapter from your dad's business to you, and how you've grown from that.
Yeah. So my dad's company, I tried to, basically what I was doing there was basically just trying to fill someone else's shoes. So what I realized is I was basically just trying to be someone that I could never be. So that business failed. And it was actually me and my mom, because my mom had no other income. That was her only income. So it was actually me and my mom that were doing the business. So we both were just it was 2 years in on it, and we were just we're done, right? We're done. Okay. We've wasted enough money. And so she went on to her thing. And then I went to this company, this real large company, to basically learn how to be a manager, because I never learned anything through my dad. All I learned from my dad was how to work physically. I never saw the background. I never did a job walk. I never talked to the homeowners. I never. It was literally I just worked by myself with my headphones on. That was it. That's all I knew. So I learned a little bit, going through those 2 years with my mom. And then I went into this large company, basically got all their prices, was there for a year, and then left with all their prices, and then started up my own company. And then around this time I was going through my spiritual thing. So it was going for about 2 years, and then I started learning really manifesting and the consciousness of a company and the ego of a company. And then I started tackling all that and basically just manifesting everything since COVID. Once COVID hit, and it basically really shook my business, and I almost lost the business because our guys got hit with COVID. And then the contractor's like, you better get here and finish this job. And I was like, I got to be out for a month, says, the CDC. So I was like, I don't know what to do here. So they kicked me off. They fired me. And then they hired some other guys. I lost about anywhere between $80,000 and $100,000 that year.
Wow.
I remember just being super angry about money and stress. Just this rage was coming through me with anger and about money, and how am I going to do this? And I'm going to lose this business again. And then that's when I was able to feel emotions in my body. It was right around that time. So I could actually physically feel what anger felt like. I could feel it cold. So anger to me is like a cold glass of water. So when I get angry, I can feel like a really cold sensation, and it goes into wherever I can keep it going. So like I could feel it, and if I don't do anything about it, I can feel it just sitting here and sitting in my body. But I know how to move it, so I would move it. And then I would start doing that with like money. So I started doing that anytime I would feel weird about money. And then I just stopped ever looking at money as like controlling for me. So I changed like all my accounts to where everything would come out automatically. So what I was trying to do is like completely rid my mind that I have money or that I have a bank account. And I was really trying to surrender at this point. So I like stopped looking at my bank account. I had all of the bills on so they'd just be automatic.
Okay.
I stopped looking at prices on things. So I would just like, I would see something I wanted or see something that the business wanted. I'd never look at a price tag. So I literally just stopped looking at price tags. And then I just started giving people money. Like we had a guy in our company who was like, just started, and he's like, I need $4,000. I'm about to lose my house. I gave him $4,000. He never paid me back. And it would, it was a little struggle at first, but when I learned to surrender and really just let it go and know that I was actually helping someone, I would literally get a job that would be like 10 times that out of nowhere. Like people would just start giving me money. So like, I basically detached myself from the money, and it just started. Like I haven't worked since COVID. I haven't worked. All I am is just with my kids now. All I do is like I call my guys every once in a while, or I'll go out there. So I got these pretty cool cats that I got stuck in out there.
That's funny you're saying that. Sharon has been going through this like whole surrender thing, and what's the word with the C? Sharon, you've been saying there's a word that you said.
Compose.
Compose.
Instead of like wishing or wanting things different, you just get inside and compose it, like visualize it.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, that surrender,
yes.
It's funny because you're talking about money, and most of my time in my life, I've always surrendered to money. Like Cisco knows that I don't keep track of what I make every week. Like I really don't like to think about finances, about money. I don't like to even look at all that stuff. And I've always been fine, but it's like the last year or so, for some reason, something's changed, and I need to get back to that state of surrender that you're talking about with money, and then I'll be fine.
Yeah, I have an employee that works for me, and he's really attached to money. He's he's always trying to buy the really nice things, and not saying that you can't, and there's no reason. Like that was actually a way that I actually manifested things too. I went and bought a $120,000 car. It was a $120,000 BMW that I couldn't afford. And I knew I couldn't afford this, but my thinking behind it, and it worked, was so I got it because I really knew that you had to like be in it and feel who you wanted to be. That makes this money. So I was like, well, I could really do that if I had that car that I was driving every day, and I'm really being that person. So I can smell it in that moment. So I got this car, and then I just started I started making so much more money after I got that car. It was incredible. It was incredible. Just from just buying that car. It was like my higher self knew that I just stepped up, and like, I never cared. I never worried about how I was going to pay for it. I just was like, I got this, I'm going to pay for it. And then these jobs that I have never gotten before just started coming in, and it was so easy to pay for that car. And I got rid of it because like I learned all these valuable lessons. Like I didn't need the car, but it was just like something that I used as a tool so that I can make more money. So
Wow.
we got rid of it, and yeah, ever since then, like it's still just rolling. So
I mean,
the
that's
whole law of attraction. I mean, it's the law of attraction.
You always get back what you put out.
Yeah. What you get out, you get back.
Even
I believe
money.
that too. I'm a firm believer of that. Whatever you put out, you get back too.
Yeah, that's amazing, Chris. Wow, that's inspiring. That's a really inspiring. This whole thing has been inspiring. Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know you have more stories in you, so we're gonna have to do another one.
Yeah.
I got some pretty cool. I tell you guys one later, but it's pretty long. But it's I think I started telling you guys about it when I was there. About did I tell you I was having like these eye twitches?
I kind of remember that. Yeah.
I was having like these lightning come from my
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah.
So
That's right.
pretty, but
Okay.
like it took me a while to figure out what was going on with that, and I figured it all out. Yeah.
Wow. Can you tell us real quick? Sorry.
Yeah. So this was when I was in Colorado. So actually I was here first, and I knew I wanted to do some more medicine. So there's a medicine called combo. So it's a frog medicine that that you put on your skin, and it's not a hallucinogenic. It's just for physical. It's a physical type of purging. So I was here in Florida. I manifested someone to come do it for me. It happened. I found a guy here. He ended up hitting me up and said, "Hey, I want to have a conference call with you. Make sure that this is right up your alley. We'll have it tomorrow." So, okay, I'm in Colorado. So I'm in my cabins there in Colorado, and I'm working real late that day. And so I get home about I don't know, it was like 12 o'clock at night. I get home, and I was outside, and I just remember staring at the stars before I went inside. And I just remember just sitting there. Oh, my eye. Sorry, the most important thing. So my eye all day long, just my left eye was twitching. And I've had this before where my eyes would twitch, and like I think they say stress or lack of water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's just all I was thinking all day long. So, but I'm like, I don't even have any stress in my life, and I'm drinking a ton of water, and so I'm doing all these things. Like it's like magnesium. Okay, so I'm taking magnesium, and it's just getting really intense. But it's like a really weird feeling, like really weird. So I go in and I start like recording it, and I'm recording my eye, and every time my eye twitches in the phone, it's like a light, and you can see it underneath you can even see it up here, and it's like underneath my skin, and it's lighting up like it's almost like the aliens that I was telling you that was taking apart my head, where they're reconnecting things. It's like there's like a gap, and it's like jumping a gap, and it's like igniting. It's like there's a big gap or something in there, and it was just like so every time my eyelid would twitch, it'd be like and it would light up. And so I had recorded it on my phone, and I'm like, all right, now it's got to be some lighting. It's got to be this and this. So I changed a whole scene. I changed my angles. It's doing it again. I'm recording it. I use my iPad. So I'm checking with my iPad. I'm checking it back through I think I went into the car, and I was like doing it in the car, just trying to figure out what's going on. I didn't get any answers. So that night when I came home, when I was looking at the stars, I just remember asking, I'm like, what's going on with my eyes? Like, I'm kind of a little bit worried right now, like I hope there's not something physically going on. Cause it's like a fear of mine to go blind. Like I have a real like weird fear about like losing my vision. And so I didn't hear anything. So I go into bed, and I'm just laying there, and all of a sudden I start feeling I've had experiences before where I can feel my body like basically vibrating. Like it feels like this, but you're not really doing anything. You might see a little bit of this, but my entire body's doing that. And like I got goosebumps all over, and I feel like I'm tripping out. Like I feel like I just took a bunch of like mushrooms or something. And so I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, I come back into my body. I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. And I'm saying this out loud. And then like all of a sudden I was okay. And so everything like completely went right back to normal. And I was like, okay. So then all of a sudden about 2 minutes later goes by, and I start basically going into like every single muscle in my body starts spasming, every single muscle. So I'm like doing this, and this is, it's happened to me before during in this enlightenment experience I had, but this one lasted for over an hour. So I'm sitting there going through these like going like this, like and I can hardly even talk. So I'm calling everyone I know, and I'm calling my wife, I'm calling my employees, calling my mom, and it's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning by now. And I'm like, well, see, I'm like, see if I can get up and go get some water. Like my mouth was so dry at this point, like I almost couldn't open my mouth. Like it was really bad. And I'm in a lot of pain right now. So I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. Like you got to relax, you got to subside. And so I would like beg, you know, stop. And I would tap out, and then it would slowly go down. And then it would just come back again really hard. And then I remember at one point I was like, this has got to stop. Like if this doesn't stop, I'm calling 911. I have to go to the hospital. And then so 5 minutes later goes by and nothing happens. And I basically go and I reach for this phone. There was like a corded phone in the room. And I went to go grab that, and I just blacked out. So I blacked out after that. And I woke up in the morning like normal. And I woke up and I was floating. Like I had no, like, I remember going and stepping on the ground, and like I couldn't feel the ground. Like there was like air. Like I was just like pushing myself through the ground, and like I was just really light. And so I still trying to understand what just happened, and what I kind of took from the experience was basically I was shedding trauma in order to get ready for this combo session that I was just about to take place. So like I called the guy back like 2 days, because he ended up calling me the next day, and I didn't answer because I was like, I'm not doing this. Like I don't feel right now. I don't even know what's wrong with me. Something could be wrong with me. I don't know. And so I talked to the guy, and he's like, I tell him about my whole situation. He goes, the combo is already working through you. So he was telling me that the medicine, since I already had a calling for the medicine, that's how it works. And I've heard this with ayahuasca and stuff like that. Like before you even go, you're already in that place. So my body was preparing myself for this combo session so that I could have exactly what I needed during the combo. So basically, like, you know, when an animal, like when a gazelle runs away from a cheetah and they get away from the chase, and when they're done, they get it off. Well, that's how animals don't get, you know, their diseases, and they get rid of that trauma real fast, and then they literally can go back to eating. Like if if a lion chased us, we wouldn't be eating right afterwards, you know, we'd be like trying to deal.
Yeah,
But what I felt like was happening is I was basically shedding off of all like bunch of these traumas or whatever I needed to be shed was happening.
Oh my gosh, this is all coming to me because reality, Renee Garcia, right? I don't know, Renee Garcia from Reality Transurfing Institute, she actually had a video the other day where she talked about how she's done the trauma release therapy or something, and she was talking about how animals, they go off and shake to get rid of their trauma, but we don't do that. But this therapy, trauma release therapy, kind of teaches you how to shake off your trauma.
Yeah.
And you're talking about it right now
too, Sharon, because like we were talking about the whole first D, second D, you know, first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimension. The animals actually live in the second dimension, you know, because they don't have to worry about paying bills and doing it. They just live in the moment. And that moment of almost getting killed, I guess, they shake it off. And they just go about their, you know, because that's the next thing is them trying to eat, you know, or they're not they're not like human beings in the third dimension where they're stressing.
Where they're holding on to and thinking about the future.
Yeah,
Right.
thinking about the future.
Yeah.
They don't think about that. They just live in the moment.
Totally.
You know?
Wow.
And
And they
That's
shake it
amazing.
off and they go.
how energy works, you know, how fear works, and how it's literally just energy and information, and it goes into your body because you just experienced it. But where's it going after that if you don't do something about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Creates diseases and like all those
Oh, of
things
course.
are connected. Like when I was in Peru and I learned about, you know, I had that enlightenment about you know, our you know, our genes and our DNA, you know, that it doesn't, you know, like I didn't need to worry about that my dad had cancer. Like it's not that my dad had cancer, he got cancer because of this, and that's how you'll get cancer, you know, not because of your dad.
Yeah. That's a great message to get and find out before, you know, you did it to yourself. Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. You have learned so much.
Yeah, I feel
This
you've
is so
definitely
awesome.
grown in the last several
Yeah.
years, Chris.
And I think, you know, the reason why, because I've had, you know, I have a tribe here, well, in Evergreen back in Colorado, and we've all been kind of started off, you know, in the same thing, but my friends, you know, they weren't like getting to their growth. So like their growth wasn't happening. And I also had an enlightenment experience with, like, this one was intense because I had an enlightenment experience while I was talking with one of them. I was on the phone and it happened to me. And I basically had to sit there and they just listened to me go through it. But at the end of it, my message is that, so I had an enlightenment experience before this one, and my whole 3D reality crumbled. So I found the matrix. I saw what it all looks like. I saw everything. And then, you know, I was in this fifth dimension where I thought, okay, that's, I made it into the fifth dimension. But what happened is that crumbled in that moment. The fifth dimension just crumbled right in front of me. So I also realized that wasn't even real. So the entire fifth dimension wasn't real. So like, I was having a conversation with the people on the other line. So they're shamanic. I have friends that do shamanic healing. So their entire business, their entire lives are revolved around the fifth dimension and healing, like with, you know, demonic energies and negative things and blah, blah, blah. But so like, I remember being on the phone and I was like, hey, do you believe that we're the creators of our reality? And she was like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, so you believe that you're creating everything in your life? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, so where do these demons and these entities and these negative things come from that you're doing? And because we were literally just having a conversation about witches and how we all have this witch attachment now. And it's like, oh, it was stressful. It like really had me stressed. And I'm like going around trying to figure out how to get this witch away from me and how it happened. And it was just like distraction. This is a complete distraction. All of this is a distraction. The only thing that's not a distraction is going in and healing your inner self. That's the only non-distraction. Everything outside of that is a distraction. So tell her that she's doing is distracting herself. Because they were asking me like, how come you're having all these experiences? Like, we're all doing the same thing, but how come you're having all these experiences? And that's what I learned is like, all right, I guess I gotta be that one. I'm gonna be that one to like shove this like truth down your guys' throat, you know. And ever since then, they've actually been they've been figuring it out, and they're like, but like it also goes because I have so much time, you know. They don't have the way that I like opened myself up and gave myself all this free time is the only reason why I'm like been able to do so much work for myself. So if I wasn't able to get free time, there's no way I'd be where I'm at right now. There's no way.
Dude, that's absolutely true.
Every day,
dude.
I wouldn't have the time to, you know, meditate 2 hours a day and be conscious like that. It's almost impossible. And to be living in, you know, the matrix and to have the experiences like that, it's like you got to really set that time for yourself.
Yeah, totally.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing when you work for the man and you're constantly, at work 12, 13 hours a day and you don't have time for yourself. You know what I'm saying? You get caught up in that, and you don't get the realization of what self-worth, I guess, is.
And just like connecting to yourself, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And more. But
and more.
yeah, that's what's missing in the world, is that people are just like trying to survive.
I would say American society, maybe Chinese, and now Indian society, all Asian society is like come into this Western world, of American societies, like be the best, do the best you can, blah, blah, blah. But really need.
Right. And do you think that's why we're here where we are today? Do you think that that's why they created the job and kept us working 9 to 5?
Yes.
Because could you imagine everyone just stopped working right now?
Oh, yeah.
Focused on self-love. We would have
ascension
a world within a couple of days. Everyone would be going through these enlightenment experiences. Everyone would be like having, they would change within no time, and we'd be doing it as a collective. So it would just catapult.
I know. And imagine if we did that instead of everybody going into the fear mode during COVID, if we all just did that during our free time when we couldn't work.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think
everything,
a lot of people did. They took advantage of that free time to find themselves,
You're right. New businesses were made and a lot of stuff, but a lot of people went into the fear mode, and then, but that's a whole nother conversation. And everything happens for a reason, and you're where you are, Chris, for a reason. I mean, you chose this life to be at this point at your age, to teach others and to influence them the way you do. That's amazing. I mean, you definitely helped us at the retreat because your energy was safe for these women that were scared of the dark in the forest, it was so nice to have you there, like to help us with that. An energy that I didn't even think about would happen, but they learned from you. So we appreciate it. And I know that you manifested Costa Rica and we manifested you being there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about meditation next time.
Yeah. We would love to have you back because this is such a great, helpful conversation. So are you on Instagram?
No, but I've been thinking about getting on there because.
Okay. Well, if you do, let us know and we'll put it back in the show notes. But is it okay if we link people to your Facebook?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Any last shout outs?
Or anything you feel like saying before we press stop?
Last words.
No, but I really do want to thank you guys for the whole Costa Rica trip. I know everyone said thanks, but really, really, really appreciate that. I really needed that. It was a really big healing, and the whole cacao thing, and just you guys, I really, really enjoyed that time with you guys, and I appreciate everything you did, your energy.
You're welcome.
On that.
Thank you for being there with us. I mean, it all worked out perfectly. So we're happy about it all. And you helped us too. So, all right, Chris, until next time.
Yeah, we'll have you back on and we'll talk some more.
Thanks so much.
All right. We'll see you later, Chris.
All right. Peace.